Hi there, it's Florence here, and it hasn't been that long since the last episode. I want to say 2 to 3 weeks maybe, but I have done so much knitting lately because of it being the Christmas holidays. I'm home from uni, I haven't really been doing the holiday work I'm supposed to be doing. I've been making gifts and a load of stuff for myself. So since the last episode, I believe I have 6 finished objects that I've knitted myself. And then I also have a finished object that my sister has knitted. My sister knits too. She probably only finishes 1 or 2 items per year, so it's not really worth her having a channel like this, but she does ask if I will show her items on my channel, so I will definitely show you her newly completed jumper as the last item in this video. So yeah, hang around if you want to see something in a very different style to all the stuff that I knit for myself, but it's so cool. I've had to write a list of everything that I'm going to show in this video so that I don't forget anything, but I will still start off by mentioning what I'm wearing. This is a pretty old jumper. I've had it for a couple of years now, a year and a half. This is the sweater number 9, I think, by My Favourite Things Knitwear. This one is knitted in 1 strand of heavy merino from Knitting for Olive. The colour is Dusty Artichoke. It's a very popular shade, I think. And then it's held with 1 strand of silk mohair, which I think is Drops. I love the fit of this jumper. I don't know what it is about it, but it's probably my favourite fitting jumper out of all the jumpers I own. Something about the silhouette is just so perfectly oversized. I have put elastic in the collar because otherwise the collar is very wide and I want it to sort of stay close to my neck. So yes, I've just sewed some elastic, sort of sewed it through the inside of the neckline, and now it sits much more nicely, and I've worn it a lot more since I've done that. But I'm going to stop talking about this jumper right there. If you check my Everything I Knitted in 2021, which I will link in the description, I talk a lot more about it in that video, but I have lots to go through, so let's just jump straight into it. I guess I'll start with my biggest finished object. I haven't weaved in all the ends, only because I'm not sure if I'll end up making any changes to it, but since I might, I didn't want to make that harder for myself than it needs to be. I finished the dress. I've showed this dress in the last couple of episodes as a work in progress, but we're finally done with it now. This is a merino wool worsted weight mini dress that I have just designed myself and calculated stitch counts for myself. It's knitted in 1 strand of gilliatt from rerum natura, which is French and Portuguese merino wool maybe. The colour is poivre, which is pepper. I used just barely over 4 skeins to knit this. I just had to break into the 5th skein to do the cuff on the last sleeve. So that's actually not a lot of yarn, just over 1,000 meters I think, which is less than I use for a lot of jumpers. And this didn't actually take me very long. So while a dress feels quite intimidating, because it is quite chunky, this is knitted on 4.5mm needles, because it is quite chunky, it actually doesn't take very long to knit at all. I don't think this took me longer than any jumpers that I have. It's one of my faster knits, I think. The only reason it's been sitting incomplete for so long is because I had other projects on the same size needles, so I had to put it on hold for a while. And also because when I'm knitting things that I'm designing myself, it requires a lot more brain power, and I'm not always in the mood to be doing that. Sometimes I just want to knit someone else's pattern with no thoughts. I'll get up a little bit closer so you can see more how the shoulder is constructed. Sorry if it's got some of my hair on it. It has a sort of saddle shoulder kind of thing. I'm pretty happy with it. I think maybe I want to make this section a little bit longer before going into the sleeve, but overall I'm quite happy with it. All of the ribbing is twisted rib. So twisted rib on the cuffs as well. And then for the hem, this is double knitted. So I increased, so I had twice as many stitches. And then I worked quite a few rounds of double knitting, so you can see it looks like stockinette on the inside as well. And then I just used an Italian bind off, I think. I think that's the proper term for the standard sewn bind off I use for pretty much everything. I think if I was going to do it again, I'd make the double knitted hem a little bit longer, but I don't hate it enough to unravel it and do it again. I'm altogether quite happy with the fit. I will insert a couple of pictures here so you can see what it looks like on me. The only thing I'm unsure about is, I think because of my body type, I tend to wear an extra small top, but I'm a medium for trousers, and so I just wear a small generally. So this is sort of a size small dress. I knitted it to pretty standard size small measurements rather than my own measurements precisely. And so I think it's a little bit roomier in the bust than I necessarily need it to be. And also the skirt is slightly more fitted than I wanted. But I don't think that's so much an issue with how I've designed it. so much as just with the fact that I didn't use my own measurements exactly. I still like the fit. I'm not too uncomfortable with wearing a slightly tighter skirt, and so I don't think I'm going to redo it. I think I am happy with it. It's just not 100% what I envisioned. Yeah, I think I will weave all the ends in and just start wearing it and see how wearable it is, because that's something that matters to me. If I'm going to write this into a pattern for other people to also knit up, I want it to be something that I really feel is wearable and that I will reach for a lot. All the other patterns that I've released are things that I just wear all the time. Okay, I will put this one away and we will move on. The next thing on my list. So, I don't do a lot of gift knitting for Christmas. I think a lot of people wouldn't necessarily want some of my knitted items for Christmas. They're difficult to care for. They're not necessarily exactly what people want, and yet I've put loads of effort into them, so I expect them to be super grateful, even if it's not what they asked for. So I don't tend to knit gifts for people. But I did knit the gift for my mum this year because I spoke to her about this and I knew she wanted it. I knew she'd really love them. And so I made her a pair of gloves. These are fingerless gloves with a mock cable pattern on them. Again, I showed them unfinished in the last video. They are now done. I did manage to have them blocked and give them to her on Christmas Day. I will give you a close-up. So this is what they look like. As you can see, they have these sort of increases that go along the thumb here. And the pattern alternates rib and these mock cables that are done by knitting two together or knitting two together through the back loop. They're a good length, I think. If I do write these up into a pattern, I will definitely make another pair for myself first, because I don't think I necessarily constructed them the best way. The yarn that I use for these is Cardiff Cashmere Classic, which is a DK weight cashmere. I definitely would say it's very light for a DK weight. I knitted these up on 3mm needles, and a 3mm needle felt like a pretty reasonable size of needle to knit this yarn up on. Like, I didn't feel like I was knitting it up. It's an especially tight gauge. I don't think I'd want to knit it on more than a 3.5mm needle, really. All of the yarn and the shades specifically that I used will be in the description. This one has a name that I can't pronounce, and some of the other yarn I will be using for items in this video doesn't have a colour name at all, and I can never remember the numbers, so it's all in the description if you're interested. Alternatively, you can check my Ravelry, because all of these projects will have a page on Ravelry where I also link the yarn that I used. I bought 2 skeins and I had a bit left over. So I think I definitely needed the second one. I might have been able to make a very short pair of gloves with just 1 skein, but yeah, 2 definitely worked better because I felt like I could knit them pretty much as long as I wanted to without worrying at all about running out. I'm really happy with the result. I think my mum really liked them. I've just borrowed them from her to show in this video, and then they will be given straight back to her. This yarn, by the way, is lovely. If you want to knit something in cashmere, this is probably a yarn that I would strongly recommend using. It's very widely available in the UK, and it really does feel special. Like, if you're going to be spending £15 for a 25-gram skein, you want to be getting that really premium experience, and I feel like this yarn really offers it. No yarn in my videos is sponsored. It's all bought with my own money. This is no exception. Okay, on to the next thing. I'm classifying this as a finished object, although I think I will go back to it. This is the newly released Beret number 3 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I decided to knit this up pretty much as soon as the pattern released, because I've been wanting to make a beret, but those sort of thinner, floppy berets that people knit don't necessarily appeal to me the most. This one is super thick and it's felted, and I haven't really felted much for my knitting before, so I thought it'd be really fun to follow a pattern and try for myself. The other reason I wanted to knit this up as soon as the pattern released is that it uses fritidsgarn from Sandnes garn, which is one of my all-time favourite yarns. It is lovely if you want a sort of lightly rough, but not uncomfortably so, pleasantly woolly feeling wool. It is lovely. It's also quite chunky. It probably is chunky. You want to knit it on a 5.5 or 6mm needle probably, so things knit up really quickly, and I did knit this up in an afternoon. I made the largest size of the beret, and that might have been a mistake. I do think that I have a pretty large head, so it would make sense for me to knit the bigger size. But this, as of right now, is still slightly too large for me. Basically, you knit up this comically large beret, which brought me so much joy when I was like walking around the house with this oversized hat on. I felt like a little mushroom. It was lovely. Then you put it through the washing machine to felt it. I was a little bit cautious about this, so I put it through a pretty short washing machine cycle, and it's still definitely too big for me to feel comfortable wearing. Like, it feels oversized, which isn't what I'm going for with the beret. So what I'm going to try and do is felt it up a bit more, and if not, I will come up with something else to do with this felted fabric. And I have some more fritidsgarn, so I can knit a size down. I also think that this colour is lovely. I think it's called very light grey. It normally is just referred to by colour code, which again will be in the description. And it's one of those really lovely greys where the grey seems to be achieved by mixing black and white fibres together, which I don't know the technical term for it, but that's my favourite type of grey. Like, it's not a flat grey where everything is dyed grey, it's black and white spun together. It's really close to cream, but just not. I think it's such a lovely colour. This is not the last appearance that this yarn will be making in this video, because I enjoyed knitting it up for this beret so much that I've cast on something else with the same yarn, which you'll see in the work in progress section. Here's a close-up so that you can see the decreases on the top a little bit more clearly. I think they're really pretty. And I have to say, I love this felted fabric. Like, I definitely want to make more things with this sort of felted finish. The details on this hat are so nice. It has this I-cord edge, which was a little bit misshapen and sort of flipped out when I first knitted it, but now that I've felted it, it sits so nicely. Okay, moving on again. This is something else that I showed as a work in progress in the last episode. These have been on my needles for far too long. This is a pair of socks, which I designed myself. I currently have a couple of people testing them, so I may well release a pattern for them pretty soon, sometime in the new year. I wanted to make a pair of cabled socks. Cabled socks are my favourite, and I feel like cables are much more forgiving in terms of the type of yarn that you can use to knit them up. This is obviously a very plain yarn, but if you want to use something that's a bit more speckled or tweedy or hand-dyed, a lot of lace patterns can look kind of busy. I don't like knitting vanilla socks. I find it not very interesting. Like, I knit a lot of plain stockinette jumpers, but for socks I want to do something exciting. So I feel like a simple cable pattern like this is especially good for using more interesting yarn if you don't want to knit a vanilla sock. This is the same stitch pattern I used for the green cashmere mittens that I showed just a minute ago. So it's a mock cable alternated with regular ribbing. I'm really happy with how these turned out. They fit me really well. I really like how they look. Here's a little bit of a close-up on the mock cable ribbing and also this rolled top edge, which I really like. The yarn that I used for these socks is retrosaria mondim. It's 100% Portuguese non-superwash wool, so this is a non-superwash nylon-free sock yarn. My biggest concern with these socks is that I'm not really sure how I feel about this yarn. I mean, I don't mind the texture of it, but I'm just worried about how it's going to hold up if I wear these socks frequently. I have a couple of pairs of socks that I sort of have designated as house socks that I'm not going to wear inside boots because I just know they won't hold up, like very soft socks with cashmere in, that type of thing. And I think I may put these socks into the same category, just because I worked really hard on them and I don't want to get holes in them really quickly. I've heard very mixed reviews on how this mondim holds up for socks. My understanding is that it is a relatively strong yarn, like it's better than other fingering weight 100% wool yarn. But generally, if it doesn't have any nylon in, it's just never going to be quite as strong. So I don't think I'm going to get into a habit of knitting up non-superwash socks. I generally don't use superwash yarn pretty much ever, but the exception is socks, because I just feel like superwash wool and nylon sock yarns are so suited for their purpose that it would be silly to put so much time and effort into something else if I know I'm going to wear through it. I know a lot of people like non-superwash 100% wool sock yarn because perhaps they don't wear their socks so heavily. I really do work through my socks, like they have to cope with a lot. And so I really need something that is very hard wearing. Anyway, I will wear them around the house, maybe on some shorter walks, and we'll see how they hold up. I will write a review for this sock yarn eventually. These are knitted exactly how I like to knit my socks, which is cuff down. I'll talk more about top socks in just a moment. But yeah, these are cuff down. They're knitted on magic loop. The pattern is deliberately written to especially suit magic loop because that is my preferred way of knitting socks. Something about knitting socks with magic loop just feels very natural to me. Like the way the stitches are distributed between the needles sort of suits how socks are structured, and so it makes the construction easy to understand. I don't know, maybe I explained that badly, but it just feels right. They have a slip stitch, heel flap and gusset. That's how I like to make socks that wear well and also fit my feet well. Socks are such a personal thing. I know everyone has slightly different preferences about how they like to knit their socks up, but I really do feel like these are everything that I love in a pair of socks. And even though I did have ever knitted the same sock pattern twice, I do something different every time. It's going to be tricky holding myself back from knitting up another pair of these. I have some sort of lightly tweedy sock yarn that I think would look really beautiful in a cable pattern like this. There will be more socks coming up in just a moment, but I will take a quick break to show something else. I showed the yarn for this in the last video because I just got it, and this was my Christmas knit. I cast this on Christmas Eve and I finished it up on Christmas Day, so it was really fast. I haven't moved the end in just because I was a little bit worried about how it would fit, but I probably can now because I've tried it on and it fits pretty well. This is a headband that I have knitted up. I don't actually have any hats that I've knitted for myself other than that beret. That beret is the first hat that I've ever knitted for myself, and I'm not really a big hat wearer, but it gets very cold and I'm about to go back to uni, and the first week back at uni is rowing week, which means that we'll be rowing probably a couple times a day, and it's going to be England in January. It's going to be quite chilly. I wanted to have something that I could wear when I'm getting the boat out or whatever, and when we're warming up, but that I can then just take off and put in my pocket or just under my legs in the boat. I appreciate this is probably a little bit fancy for that, but I like knitting lovely things. And I didn't want a hat because I always tie my hair up, so I felt like a hat would not really go over my ponytail. It would just look a bit lumpy or maybe uncomfortable, and so I wanted to make a headband. So yes, I knitted this headband up. I didn't really do anything very complicated for this. I was weighing up doing lace, but I do just genuinely prefer the look of stockinette for something like this. Like, I figured if it was a lace headband, maybe the knitting process would be more fun, but I probably just wouldn't reach for it as much. The yarn that I used was, this is Sunday from Sandnes garn, and this is the tynn silk mohair from Sandnes garn. Both of these are in the same shade. I believe it's 1015. It's called Kitt. Anyway, and I mentioned in the last video when I showed this yarn that I just bought, they are slightly different colours. The Sunday, which is a 100% non-superwash merino fingering weight, this is more of like a yellowy cream colour, quite muted. It hasn't got that sort of custard banana look that some cream yarns have that I really don't like, but it's definitely more of a sort of muted yellow cream, whereas the mohair is a little bit more of a muted pink cream. They look really nice together though. I absolutely adore this colour. I actually like this headband so much that I have ordered some more of that yarn, just one extra skein of each. So if I hold it together with these leftovers, I think I can actually get a hat out of it. Yes, I've changed my mind about hats. I borrowed one of my mum's hats when I was on holiday over Christmas, and I actually really liked it, and I've decided I need to knit myself a proper hat for the winter. It's actually quite sweet. My sister and my sister's boyfriend both knit, so for Christmas I got them yarn to knit hats because they wanted to knit hats for themselves. I got them both yarn to knit the Oslo hat by Petite Knit, and I guess I'm also going to knit myself an Oslo hat by Petite Knit. I've got yarn to knit my boyfriend an Oslo hat by Petite Knit, and my mum is knitting one too, so we're just all going to have matching. It's going to be lovely. So yes, I'm super happy with this. I can't wait to wear it, and this colour is just so beautiful. I couldn't resist picking up some more. I think this is the last finished object that I knitted today. I made another pair of socks, and the reason why these are finished objects and I didn't ever show them in a half-finished state in one of these podcasts is because they're DK weight socks, and so they were incredibly quick to knit. I basically knitted them up in like 1 day per sock. I've been kind of wanting to knit up a pair of DK weight socks for a while because I don't actually have a pair, and I was curious about how much faster they are and how chunky they feel. Like, is it still something I want to wear inside my shoes? Is it too thick? I don't know. I just wanted to try it out. I was curious. I didn't have any DK weight sock yarn though, and I wasn't especially in search of any. But a few days ago I went into my local yarn shop, which is Yarnworks in Hadley. I mean, it's not actually very local to me. This is when I'm at home and I'm not at university. It's a pretty long drive away, but my grandparents live quite close to it, so anytime I visit my grandparents I can also visit Yarnworks. And Yarnworks sort of specialises in really beautiful hand-dyed yarn. I have a lot of pairs of hand-knitted socks. I don't have a single pair of hand-dyed hand-knitted socks. Never used hand-dyed sock yarn before at all. I think the reason for that is that, like I said, I like knitting fancy socks. I want them to be elaborate, I like cables and lace, and I feel like if I buy sock yarn that's hand-dyed, that kind of defeats the point. Like, you can't see the lace or the cables nearly as well because of any kind of variegation or any pretty colour and speckles that might be going on in hand-dyed yarn. And if I don't want that, I'm almost like, why would I buy hand-dyed when commercial yarn is so much cheaper and also does just flat colours really well? The one thing that's kind of intrigued me is yarn like this that's I don't know if the term is tonal. Even then, I feel like tonal hand-dyed yarn is normally flatter. This is much less variegated. All the colours are quite close together. I really am sorry that I don't know the hand-dyed yarn terminology. I don't use it very often. This is a yarn from Emma's Yarn, which I think is an American hand dyer. I believe Yarnworks is the one place you can get it in the UK. They have an amazing selection. So I was just checking out, I was buying some other yarn that I will show you towards the end of this video. And as I was approaching the counter, I saw all of these DK weight skeins, and I saw they were 25% nylon. Like I said, I like nylon in my socks, and so I thought I'd just pick up a skein and give it a go. I was a little bit worried about getting a pair of socks out of one skein. I think it was about 240 yards. American units, I don't know what 240 yards is in meters. And that's not exact. I think it was just something around that. So I wanted to knit a pair of tarp socks. I don't often like knitting tarp socks. I'm getting better at it, okay? I feel pretty content with the toes of my tarp socks now. The number one thing that frustrates me about them is the bind off edge at the top. It always flares out. It doesn't stretch and then return to its original shape like a long tail cast on does. I don't even do like German twisted cast ons or anything fancy for my cuff down socks. I just do a regular long tail cast on and it stretches out plenty and then returns to its shape perfectly. And I just never get that finish that I like so much with toe up socks. So the pattern I bought was Rookie Winter. It's a sock pattern by Yuka. I've mentioned before that I really like Yuka sock patterns. This isn't the last one in this video. I've knitted up socks from some of their sock patterns before. And this is a DK weight version of a different pattern they have. You can get the Rookie regular, like fingering weight version, and then this is Rookie Winter, which is DK weight. Now, you can hopefully see the pattern. Obviously the hand dyedness makes it less obvious, but it has these cables. But they're the kind of cables that instead of actual cabling, they're made up of increases and decreases. And then it just has this sort of broken rib along the top of the foot and the back of the leg. I don't remember the name of this yarn base, it will be in the description. The colour is Morel of the Story. Morel, like the mushroom. I thought that was a really cute name. And it is a sort of greyish, brownish, almost purplish colour with all these different shades. It does have bits of brown and it has some sort of purpley bits in it, but it's just so beautiful. And I really do think that maybe I should try occasionally knitting up some more socks with hand-dyed yarn, because these just flew off the needles because I was enjoying the process of knitting them so much. I think just because I found the yarn so exciting. And I love these socks. I don't wear my socks very much until I've showed them in a podcast, because when I wear my socks, I stretch them out and they become kind of weirdly shaped. And so I haven't worn these that much yet, but now that I filmed this, I expect I will wear them a lot. And yes, this is how much I have left. They're pretty short socks. I have big feet, so I'm a UK shoe size 7, which is an EU 40, I think. I know that's not huge, but I'm quite short, so I really do have big feet for my height. And yes, I managed to get out a nicely sized pair of socks. This is the length in the pattern, or like some of the samples are knitted to this length, and I have a little bit left. I think this is about 10 grams. And with that, we can now move on to another pair of socks. These ones are in progress, and they're again knitted from a pattern by Yuka. The pattern is called Komarebi, and so it has this really pretty sort of leaf pattern design to it. And the leaf pattern lace goes all the way up to the toe. There isn't a plain toe. Not all of Yuka's sock patterns are toe up, but this one is also toe up, because obviously I was feeling quite confident from the success of the Rookie Winter socks, and so I felt like I could face this. The yarn that I'm using for these is Sisu by Sandnes garn. Again, it's a colour number, will be linked in the description. I did a little poll on my Instagram the other day out of curiosity, asking you guys which your favourite sock yarn is, because I know a lot of people have one that they especially like, and this one actually came really close to the top of the ranking. Where's my phone gone? I will check. Yes, the one that came out as the #1 most popular was Filcolana Arvetta. That's not that surprising to me. Cascade Heritage came out second. I assume there are a lot of Americans following me, because I feel like that's a very American choice of sock yarn. And then Sandnes Sisu, this one, came third. I am really enjoying it. The colour selection is great. I love this kind of pretty soft green colour. It's a very me sort of colour. I do find it's a little bit splitty. Like sometimes when I'm trying to do any kind of fancy stitch for lace, I find that it sort of separates and I'm left with bits of the strand where they shouldn't be, but it's nothing too bad and I'm pretty happy with how it's coming out. These types of things are just so addictive to knit for me. I love knitting fancy socks like this. I'm doing it on 2.25mm needles. These are my Chiaogus. They're just regular 80cm Chiaogu needles. I only have one pair and I use them to knit all of my socks. I spoke a little bit in some episodes a while ago about finding the right sock needles for me, and I do like these needles. These are definitely satisfactory sock needles. So if you want to knit socks and you're just going to buy one pair of needles, I do strongly recommend these. I like to use a 2.25mm even if it's not specified in the pattern, just because I feel like my socks wear better if I'm working on a slightly smaller needle, so they're a little bit thicker and more dense, I suppose. So yes, that's a kohlrabi sock in progress. Hopefully by the next episode I'll have them done. Actually, I'm missing socks too much nowadays. I need to focus more on other things because I want to get big garments done sometimes, not just socks. I'm going to buy some new boxes to store all of my hand-knitted socks in and I'm very excited about it. Okay, the next work in progress. I showed this 2 episodes ago and I don't think I showed it in the last episode because I hadn't really made any progress on it, but I'm now moving again. This is a slightly long-term project because it's a scarf, and so it's both quite large and also not especially exciting. This is basically just a big stockinette tube, which, I mean, I cast it on using a magic cast on, and then I've just been knitting it in the round. This is how much I've now done. I made quite a bit of progress on it because it's quite nice having something that's just plain stockinette in the round with no thoughts. And so when I was in the car on the way back to Scotland a few weeks ago, I knitted quite a lot of this length. It's also my preferred knit for when I'm watching subtitled TV because I can knit it really easily without looking, whereas with lace or cables or anything else, I do sometimes have to look at my knitting still. So yeah, this is definitely the best subtitled TV knit for me. This is the 3rd ball of cashmere that I'm using, so I haven't mentioned it yet in this episode. This is knitted up in this, I think it's 97%, it's basically all cashmere. This yarn is from Skall Studio, which is a clothing brand. They sell knitting patterns for some of the expensive clothing that they sell in their store, which I think is really cool. Like if you want to buy one of their really expensive jumpers but you don't have the money, they do sell the patterns much more cheaply so you can knit them up yourself. They're beautiful patterns and I really want to make one at some point. They also sell cashmere yarn, which I assume is the same cashmere that their cashmere garments are made out of. It comes in a grand total of 2 colours. This is brown, I think they also have a grey. I always felt like I was quite smart because I haven't seen many people using this yarn and it's actually pretty affordable for cashmere. It comes in 50g 200m skeins for about £14 each, I think, which is pretty affordable. Well, I mean it's not, but for cashmere, that's on the cheap end. But I think lately I've seen some quite popular designers. I think My Favourite Things Knitwear has designed something using this yarn. So maybe it's a little bit harder to find in stock now, I don't know. I've had it sitting around for too long, I didn't know what to use it for, and so I figured a scarf is the best thing to use my very expensive and lovely cashmere for because it's just going to be touching my neck, and so I want something really soft, and also because I can wear this with any outfit, so hopefully it'll get a lot of wear. I want to finish it fairly soon so I can get plenty of wear out of it this winter before I have to retire it for the summer. We'll see how it goes. So my final work in progress, I haven't got very far with yet. If you remember what I was saying before about how sometimes I don't like to knit on things that I'm designing myself because I find it to be quite stressful and to need a lot of brain power, and this is no exception. So I've cast on, this is going to be a very plain jumper, I think. I want to make just sort of a drop shoulder jumper because when I was knitting the beret and I was reminded of how much I like the sandnes fritidsgarn, and I have quite a lot of it in 2 or 3 different colours, I thought I'd knit a sort of contrast colour, simple stockinette jumper with maybe some extra seam details, we'll see. So I just sort of spreadsheeted up some numbers and cast it on. It's on 5.5mm needles, so it should be fairly quick once I get going, but I'm still on the yoke, and when you're designing something, the yoke is the part where you have to think a lot about armhole depth and increases and all this stuff, and then once you get below this part and you're just knitting the body and the round, you can just knit with no more thoughts. So I haven't actually got that far with this just because it's normally not the thing that I reach for because I have to think so much about it. I'd rather knit the lace socks than knit this in stockinette right now because it is requiring brain power. And also just getting up to go get a tape measure and measure other clothing I have to see what I want it to look like and all that sort of stuff that's just inconvenient. Anyway, I think it's going to look lovely, and once I get going it should be really quite fast. It's the same kind of gauge-ish as the step-by-step sweater that I've released a pattern for, and I can knit one of those up in 4 days. So I feel like once I get going with this, it will be fast. Although I'm also going to have to start working a lot more on my uni work over the next few weeks, so I won't have quite so much knitting time. Anyway, the yarn is beautiful, and there's not very much to show for this right now, but hopefully there will be more next time. I have a yarn acquisition. Like I mentioned before, I went to Yarnworks in Hadley, and basically I really like the dress that I knitted, but the thing that I can't get out of my head is how badly I want like a jumper version of that dress. I really want a fitted hand knitted turtleneck, and I find patterns for one that I like are really hard to come by. I want one which has like a fitted waist, nice high neck. It's quite a specific vision, okay? And so I figured I would just knit the dress again, maybe making any small alterations I feel like I want to the yoke, but just as a jumper. And since it won't actually use very much yardage, like I said, the whole dress took me just barely over 1,000 meters. So a jumper version should use much less than that. I thought I could treat myself to some quite nice yarn, and so I went to buy it in Yarnworks rather than just ordering it cheaply online. So this is what I ended up getting. The main strand is alpaca wool by Sandnes garn. I went in there planning on buying the Knitting for Olive heavy merino, but they have a pretty limited colour selection in store of the heavy merino, and none of the colours were precisely what I wanted. So I went upstairs, and I didn't even know they had this stuff in stock. I think it's new. Or like it's an old yarn, but it's new to Yarnworks. But it's such a beautiful marzipan beige colour. I just love this type of shade, and I think a jumper knitted up in this would be one that I can reach for and pretty much pair with any of my other clothing. Colour is 2321. And then the mohair, I got this mohair from Emma's Yarn because the Emma's Yarn mohair actually costs like the same amount as the Knitting for Olive mohair in Yarnworks. This is, I think, about £20 for a 50-gram skein, whereas Knitting for Olive is like £10 for a 25-gram skein. I got the colour Weathervane. I don't know if you can see, it has some other colours in it, like some of this bright yellowy green and a bit of beige, but you can't really see it when it's caked up, and I don't think you'll see very much of these colours when I knit it up in stockinette held with the alpaca wool. But if I see a little bit of variation, I think that could be really pretty, so I'm optimistic that the result will be really nice. I'm looking forward to casting this on soon. And yeah, I bought like 2 of the mohair and I think 7 of the alpaca wool. I think it's 100 meters per skein. So hopefully that'll be enough. I think it should be. If I can get a dress out of 1,000 meters, I should be able to get the jumper version from 700. The sun is coming past the blanket that I hung up in the window. So I'm sorry, but I have one more thing to show, and it's my sister's net. I thought this would be fun to show because I know a lot of you guys have been knitting up my step-by-step sweater lately. And I've knitted 2 versions of it myself. I knitted one with a funnel neck that's grey and white striped and has no short rows, so that's the ultimate beginner-friendly jumper. I've worn that so much lately, like so much. And then I knitted up another version in Noro tynn with mohair that was a little bit more of an experienced knitter, a bit higher budget, and that version had short row neck shaping as well. So I thought it'd be fun to show another version, this time knitted up by my sister, that is completely different. This does, I think, have the short row neck shaping, and as you can see, it's very cropped. She knitted this up using Cloud from Lang Yarn, which is so beautiful, and I so want to knit something using this yarn. Like, it's not really my style, but it just looks so fun to knit up. It's a blow yarn, so this is super soft, and it's a very different finish to the versions I knitted up myself. And she used 3 skeins to knit this cropped version. I think maybe it's the 3rd size, possibly. I'm going to try it on because it looks so cute on. I want to show you. Oh, I pulled out my bobby pins. So, please ignore the loose ends, but this is what it looks like. So it's very cropped, and she didn't do any ribbing on it at all. All of these are just stockinette, and then she just did a regular bind off. So all of the edges curl up. Has super long sleeves. I think she skipped all of the sleeve decreases, so they're completely straight. I think she did it because she forgot to read them in the pattern, but the result kind of matches the overall look, I think. And then for the body, I think she knitted a couple of rounds, and then she did one round where she did a few knit two togethers under each arm. So it brings it in quite dramatically just under the arm. And then she knitted in stockinette a little, and again, no ribbing, she just bound off. So the bottom hem of the body also rolls up. And yeah, that's what it looks like. I think it's really cute. And I think the rapid decreases help stop the bottom of the jumper from lifting up too much. I really like it. I tried it on and I was amazed at how much I enjoy wearing it. It's just so cute. And I think that if any of you guys have very different style to me and like something a little bit more trendy and more colourful, this is hopefully going to inspire you a little bit to knit up something similar. So yes, this is sort of my step-by-step sweater pattern in the yoke only, and then the rest she pretty much just made up herself. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this video wasn't too long. I know I had a lot to show. I'm filming another video now. I'm going to film the next part of my everything I knitted in 2022, even though I'm so tired already. But yes, I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back again soon with another video, and goodbye.